Good morning, friends. Welcome to our fun location. Mm-hmm. This isn't nearly as exciting or spacious as the sanctuary.
Yeah.
Which
it's cozy.
It is cozy.
Yeah.
It's nice and warm. It's nice and sunshiny and beautiful, and we're outside. It's exciting because I want us to eventually start pushing it outside, but it's still too cold, so we have to kind of still be inside. But welcome to Coffee Talk. Welcome to just this time where we get to hang out and just consider God's Word and look at some of these things and talk about what's happening in our church and how you can be involved in that and a part of that and joining the discussion. So welcome this morning. Hopefully you're having a great day wherever you're watching this. And we want to kind of draw some announcements to your attention, but first we always we start with looking back and looking back at even this last Sunday in the sermon. And so it was kind of cool because we actually had we called him a guest speaker, mm-hmm. but he's one of our own, Chris Height. He came in and Jeff started a sermon, and then Chris came and shared some thoughts that kind of, he felt like God laid on his heart, and he had shared with us as pastors, and we said, you know what, we would love for you to share that with people, and so it was really cool. So thank you for making him a part of that. And I think it was awesome.
I think that was great.
Yeah. And so Jeff began with the passage by reading through it, and it was about the greatest commandment, mm-hmm. And it began with love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And it was a question that came to Jesus about, what's the greatest commandment? What mm-hmm. if you were to boil it all down, mm-hmm. what does it mean? And I think sometimes in our modern thinking, we think those same things as well too. We want to be able to just give me the Coles Notes. I don't want to have to read the whole mm-hmm. thing because mm-hmm. sometimes it gets too complex or there's too many differing opinions. Just boil it down for me. Give me the big idea. And so Jesus boils it down and says, okay, if I was to boil it down, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second commandment is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And it must have just been mind-boggling for the Jews at the time to hear that. And so my question for us to kind of just wrestle with this morning is what is, Chris threw out a question. What does it mean to love God? Do you love God? Mm-hmm. And what does that mean, and what does it look like? Jeff, what's a very practical way that you would say, okay, for me, when I hear that thought, love God, it means this, or just at the very outset, taking Chris's approach and Chris's question, what does it mean to love God? Do you love God?
You sound like you're trying to ask me a pointed question, and I'm not sure I'm ready for a pointed question, but so I'll just answer it the way I think Jesus does something very amazing there. He says it's a two-sided coin. Mm. On the one side, you love God. On the other side, you love people, and you can't really divorce those two.
Right. It's the same coin.
Right? You can't love God without having loving others, and mm-hmm. you can't truly love others without having loving God. Like they're inseparable. And so, if you meet somebody that says they love God, but they're miserable to mm-hmm. be around, and they treat people awfully, I don't think they're loving our God. Whatever God they think they're loving is not the true God, right? On the other hand, if you have somebody that is so loving of people, but they don't acknowledge God, they're missing love of God as well, right? So they're just so intertwined, right? So I mean, there are the things like that Chris said. Do you struggle when you see things that God wouldn't like happening? That's a sign that you love God. do you rejoice with things that are pointing to God, right? And it's not like every time I open the Bible, I love it,
Right.
you know, like we got to be a little careful with that, because there are moments like with people that I know love God where they just don't feel like opening the Bible at that moment.
Yeah.
But I think love is more than a feeling. So it's not just doing it because I feel like it. Like love is an action. Love is a part of the will. And so I will open the Bible because I know it's important, and I know that that's where I meet Jesus, and so that's part of it too. Like, am I willing to do some things that I don't want to do because I know they're right? That's a sign of loving God too. So I'm sure I'm going further than you meant, but those are thoughts that come to mind.
No, but that's the initial question I wanted us to go with. Is it like, what does it mean to love God? It's going to work itself out. Like, I love that imagery of the coin, right? Like, it's the same coin.
Yeah.
So my thought on that as well too is that, like, I feel like I don't think it was purposefully, but it just kind of happened when I feel like you grow up in the church. You actually take those things and they become two coins that you use at different times.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So to love God is actually wonderful and necessary and important, and you use that coin to praise and adore and get into your Bible and spend time in His Word and desiring to be with other people who want to, you know, serve Him and care about what He cares about, and deepening your faith and all of these things. And that's that coin. And then on us also, what feels like a very separate note, there's other people. And it just feels like those are two different things. And the other people is like, okay, because, yeah, great, that's wonderful. So God says love others. So on a very separate note, I'm going to now go love others. And I'm going to you know, hold the door open for somebody, or ask somebody how their day is, or care for them, or, you know, do whatever. And it just always felt like that was a very separate thing. And it just at some point, 1 John 4 just like snapped in my head, and it was like, you can only love God by loving others. You can't say that you love God and not care for others. Same with the beginning of James. You can't say I love God so much and then yet somebody who is in need, who is in, you know, to say, have a good day and take care and walk away. Those two things are not disconnected. They're actually one and the same, like you said, that same coin. And so I also heard it said too that, like, to know God is to love God is to serve God is to love others. Right? That there is even a sequence to that, and that adoration, worship, confession, study, all of these things are actually good and wonderful, and show that you love God because you love what God loves, which is even that sense of communion, deepening your understanding of Him, and saying, if I only had God, I would be happy, right? That there's that. But it's almost like there's an outcome. It's almost like, if you want to show God, like, if you want to, that the eventual outcome of that is going to be loving others. So then, okay, so this is why I thought we should be in the van today.
Oh, okay.
Then the other side of what Chris was saying was that, okay, what does it mean to love others? So what I thought about was kind of some of those practical things. Well, to love others means, you know, to care for them and to, you know, grace, and, you know, I think of being in the Tim Hortons drive-through, where you pay for the person behind you, then that person pays for the person behind them. You know, that acts of random kindness and all those wonderful things. And you kind of think about that, and I think that's wonderful. And yet what I've found difficult, and what kind of came to the surface for me through asking some of those questions, because Chris even said, what does that mean? What does that mean for you? You know, how does it come across in even judging others? Okay, so don't be judging, be kind. Like, okay, so I feel like we aim for that in the church. And then there's like this funny tipping point. And for me, the tipping point is we can love people and give them grace and give them love until they've kind of hurt us. Or in a lot of ways, like, let's say you're 10 years old and you and your brother are sitting in the back. So this is why I feel like this is very illustrative.
Are you on your side of the line?
Yeah, that's literally, how many times did we hear that growing up? You know, I can love anybody, but I will not love my brother who wronged me because of this and this and this. Or even as adults, you know, he said this or did this or whatever, and I took that and I put that seed in my heart, and I'm kind of holding on to that, and I can love anybody. But as soon as they're so close, then I can't ever get to that point of forgiveness. And it's funny how, you know, maybe if you want to comment on this, of like how intertwined love and forgiveness are, right?
Yeah, that's another one where Jesus says, forgive, even in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us as we forgive those who have hurt, or, you know, love is a two-sided, and forgiveness, like, it seems almost like, you know, if you're not willing to forgive that little thing, however big it was to you, compared to the infinite price he paid for my forgiveness, that thing is infinitesimally small, even though it feels like it's bigger than the world, right? And so I think he likes this, where we realize that what we have in him is more than sufficient to cover whatever debt, whatever love we owe. So, like, Chris said it well. He said, we don't judge somebody because we just choose to. We judge them because they deserve it. So, like, you think differently than me.
Yeah.
You're not worthy. You do something that I don't approve of. You're not worthy. You hurt me. You're not worthy. You know, those are three of many ways that we judge people. And then he ended with saying, but I did all those things to Jesus, and he forgave me, right? He loved me anyways. And so, love and forgiveness, like, if he loved me, who did all those things to him, and forgave me, then can't I love and forgive somebody else who, you know, like, of course it could be awful, and it might take a long time, and it might take a lot of work, but are we at least willing to start our forgiveness process, or to start, or even pray that God would change our heart to be willing, you know, like it starts with a recognition and an admission, and then, you know, and those steps. So are we ready to take that first step? I think that's another thing. We think we have to be all the way here, but to Jesus, I think it's more about where we're directed, where we're headed. Are we headed in the right direction with him?
Yeah.
Well, we're with him, then he's taken us. He's got it, right? We're not complete yet, but we will be.
And I think it's even something you said, you know, a couple months ago, of like micro directions, right? Like micro adjustments. You know, like let's say you're going from here to the other side of the lake, and if you just start at one point and say, okay, I'm going there, and then you aim yourself, great, and then you end up at some point way off because you didn't make those micro adjustments as everything kind of shifted around you. But continually, as you go across the lake, looking up and saying, okay, are we headed in the right direction? That's why faith is not I made my choice.
Yes.
I said the prayer. I did the thing. Let's move on and get on with life. And I'll, you know,
it's a growing muscle.
I'll see you in heaven. But it's that it's that consistent day by day, you know, faith walk, And
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said about even just, that sense of growing every day, and not saying, okay, now I've arrived. And I think that's one thing that we as Christians struggle with, and
Yeah.
maybe even we as pastors too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're just as human as, we're all called to something. If you're called to be a pastor, that's your call. If you're called to be a teacher, that's your call. And you serve him in that the way he calls you. So, yeah.
And the other thing too is like, I think like you had said, ways that we disagree with people, but I think even a second part of that is the way that we categorize people.
Yeah.
Like, well, you're a pastor, so therefore this, and you're a that, and we love to just fit people into these slots.
Yeah.
And I love meeting people who kind of break the mold, who just say, or like, think about music, okay, you start playing a certain type of music, and then you go and meet somebody and they say, oh, you're a musician. What kind of music do you play? I actually don't want to answer that question, because if I said, okay, well, I'm rock, or I'm hip hop, or I'm Latin, or I'm jazz, or I'm whatever, sometimes that not only feels like it locks you in, but then you don't have the opportunity to realize you're actually more than just what that product is, right? And I think it's the same thing for us, that when we lock people into a certain thing, it is then really easy that if I disagree with that certain thing, then to immediately judge them, right? And so categorization, I almost wonder, is the beginning of some of the ways that
Judging.
That we judge
We
others.
have to judge something to put it in a category, don't we?
Yeah,
Right?
and the way that Chris even phrased it, like he pulled us back to Matthew 7 or Matthew 6. The same measure that you use will be used against you. But it's okay though, because I'm perfect, so it's not going to actually matter.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
We had another reason for meeting in the car.
Yeah.
Some stuff coming up.
Yeah, some stuff coming up, and we want to remind you about. The first thing is on March 31st, so at the end of this month, we're halfway through March right now. Is that not crazy?
Yeah.
We're halfway through March, and in about 2 weeks, at the end of spring break, it's a Friday night. The women are going to be gathering and doing a board game night. So, there's a good opportunity to, hang out with what feels like siblings and play some board games, Hopefully there's no fights there. I'm sure they'll keep it civil.
Love
but
somebody even if they
But they've had a couple of these games night, and I think it's gone really well. So that's really exciting. So March 31st, and you can see more information coming out on that in the next little bit as well.
Been in the bulletin too.
It's been in the bulletin. Yep.
Yep.
We don't have a bulletin.
Sorry, it's been in our weekly email called LHBC Life.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then what's the other reason we were meeting in the van, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. So Pastor Chris has been telling us about this parent seminar that's April 1st, right? April 1st, I think it's 1:30 to 3:30 or something like that. It's in the afternoon. Called 1,000 Conversations, or 1,000 Little Conversations or something, and it's about, the sexuality and those relationships. And so, where do you have a lot of little conversations? It often is in the car driving around. And so these are often opportunities to answer or it doesn't have to be when you have a big talk, but that's what the whole point is. Like the 1,000 Conversations, are you ready for those little questions that come up? Yeah. Or are you ready to ask questions that might raise it? How do you do that? Those are all things that I think will be addressed in that parenting seminar. Mm-hmm. And so if you're just having a newborn, go to this thing. Like it's valuable for you to be thinking right from the start, no matter how old your kid is. You have an opportunity to think about these things a little differently, maybe, or it might affirm some of the things you were doing or challenge. But it's just really good to talk about how to do these things as parents, because we all know parenting it's tough, and I think most all of us want to do it well. Yeah. And so these are opportunities for us to take 2 hours out of our day and think about how to do it. So
and to be able to have those conversations ourselves and not expect somebody else to be having those conversations for us, or even
Yes.
in
Yeah.
our absence, right? To be able to say, as a family, this is what we believe, and this is what we
Yeah.
encourage, and to be able to talk through some of those things. The reason I laugh too is because the great reason to have those conversations in the car is because you're locked in.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
We are going to talk.
Well, and that's not the point of the conversations either. It's to be ready. I think it's more to be ready at the moment. But
Yeah.
there are times when you just, okay, this is the time. Yeah.
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 And it's a good thing. And
Yeah.
I think everybody who is watching this, I think you get it. But we would highly encourage that this is an opportunity for you.
Yeah.
So please don't pass it by. You'll be amazed at how well some of this actually does spark some really good conversations for you.
Even with you and your spouse, if
Yeah.
if you have if you have a spouse that you're raising a kid with, that those conversations are,
Yep.
I think, are really valuable too. So, oh, I know are valuable. Sorry.
That's April 1st.
Yep.
And then not quite a week later, so actually that whole weekend, so it's March 31st is the evening, and then
April 1st.
April 1st is a Saturday, and that's Palm Sunday a day later. So it's lots of stuff
right.
happening that weekend. And then that means a couple days later is Good Friday. And so the plan is at this point to go to Emmanuel again to meet as West Kelowna Evangelical Churches. There's a group of us, not all of us, but there's a group of us that are meeting. And so we have said, Lakeview is in for that, and we're planning to be there. So we encourage you to join in. Just show up. You don't have to reserve a spot or anything like that. There's
Might want to show up a little early.
Might want to show up a little early.
People, but yeah.
And
Should be really good though.
and really, really great to be able to do these things together as the Church of the West Side.
My first one was last year, and I just thought it was so neat how the churches came together to plan this thing, and one seamless presentation of the good news of Jesus.
Yeah.
Good Friday. It's bad Friday in a lot of ways. Because it was the worst moment in history where we killed God, but the best because He willingly gave Himself for us. And that message was presented. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's Good Friday, and then we'll be obviously gathering for Easter Sunday, and so we're going to be rolling out some details on that as well too. But just kind of looking ahead, that's about a month from now, and so we're excited to join together in that. And we want to bless you on your way. Hopefully, you're taking some time to discuss even the same passage with other people, and to say what does it mean to love God, to even ask this of your coworkers who are not Christian. To you, what does it mean to love God? What does it mean to love others? And to understand that this actually all came from Jesus's mouth. And so we encourage you to take some time in that, and we want to bless you on your way, and have a wonderful week. And we'll see you in a couple days.